Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the third installment of the virtual Carolina Science Cafe series. My name is Jonathan Frederick, and I'm coming to you live and direct from my basement this time. The 3-year-old and 5-year-old are up there, I think, getting ready to have some dinner. You may recall last week I had them go outside while I was in the living room, but now I'm down here with the games and the props, and I'm excited to see you. I'm getting a little bit used to this virtual interaction. That's different than saying I'm good at it, but I'm getting a little bit used to it. Having said that, we wish you were well. We miss you. We hope everyone's doing as well as can be under these strange and surreal times, and you're practicing physical distancing while it's difficult, and you're washing your hands and helping us flatten the curve. So we appreciate you, and we can't wait to see you on the other side of all of this. You are at the virtual Carolina Science Cafe, where typically we're in a bar, and we connect an expert or a series of experts to the general public so that people can ask questions and the expert can clear up misconceptions, learn what the public feels about their topic. We can really have an informal, robust discussion around what we're doing. Tonight, the rules of engagement are a little bit different, but before we dive into the topic where we're going to talk all about space with our planetarium educators, Nick Eakes and Amy Sayle, I would like to say thank you to Top of the Hill. It's the restaurant where we normally host these cafes. Back bar is right on the second level there, right below the Top of the Hill restaurant. They're incredible partners. So hey, Jeff and everybody there. We also should thank Sigma Xi, which is the UNC Chapel Hill chapter of Sigma Xi, which sponsors these series and helps put money towards some appetizers when we're in meat space, as they say, which is the real space. I don't know, that's a little strange language. That's maybe antiquated language, but I thought I'd bring it up anyway because it's appetizing. Anyway, moving right along. What I think we should think about is cosmos. A lot of times, if you're feeling a little bit cabin feverish and you want to contemplate the stars, we have two of the best at doing that with you. And I always feel a little bit strange for them because working at Morehead Planetarium and Science Center, which is a unit of UNC Chapel Hill, it's an incredible place to work, but these people are tasked with going into the planetarium, the beautiful Morehead Planetarium, and thinking about like these vast geologic timescales and distances that are virtually incomprehensible. And then they have to come and sit down with schmoes like me and talk about like paperwork and HR documents and whatever that is. So it's like this, they must have vertigo from time to time, but they're incredibly good at that. We have Amy Sayle, who is a trained epidemiologist, but loves the stars so much we get to work with her. And she works with Morehead for longer than I have. And we also have Nick Eakes, who I think actually technically has also worked at Morehead Planetarium and Science Center longer than I have. And I've been there 13 years. He graduated from UNC Chapel Hill. He was a high school volunteer, camp counselor. He's been doing incredible things with Morehead. He should run the place, I think so. But I'm going to get out of the way and turn it over to them so they can tell you what's out tonight, teach you a little bit how to use some astronomy software, and hopefully answer some of your questions. So Amy and Nick, thank you for being here, and take it away.
Thanks, Jonathan. So I'm Amy Sayle, my former field epidemiology, currently enjoying rock star status, but I really like being an astronomy educator at Morehead. I get to work in the Full Dome Theater, showing people an amazing immersive planetarium sky. And then Nick and I work together to coordinate our monthly public sky watching sessions, which, as you probably have guessed, are not happening right now because they are mass gatherings by definition. So also I help coordinate the statewide Star Party in its 8th year. It's part of the North Carolina Science Festival. Those events are also mass gatherings. So our 36 hosts across the state will not be holding their events as they were originally planned on April 24th and 25th, but we hope they will all be able to reschedule. But in the meantime, we are looking for ways to share the sky with you in a more virtual sense. And we hope that you will go outside and do sky watching at home. So that's what this Science Cafe is about. And I'll turn things over to Nick to introduce himself and our plan.
Great. Thanks, Amy. And hey, everybody out there. We're excited to be with you tonight, and we miss you. We wish we could be in our big dome with you right now, but circumstances mean that that's not going to happen. So this is a Science Cafe. I hope everybody has their beverages and things like that. I wish I was in back bar with you right now. I have my He's Not Here cup. I hope that's allowed. But I hope you're enjoying your evening, and we're going to try our best to maybe take you a little bit further away from the bonds of Earth tonight and give you a sense of where things are out there in the cosmos. So what we're going to do is use a program called Stellarium. It's a free program. You can go to stellarium.org and check out all the different ways to download it. I'm using a PC desktop version today. but they have apps for all types of smartphones. They have it for Mac, and you can kind of explore what works best for you. Of course, we're not expecting you to follow along with us tonight, but if you want to play around with it, we're going to try during our tour of the sky to give you some tools so that you can try this out yourself. It's really fun. So we do want to hear your questions as well. So if you have a question during the tour, use the Q&A function that's right down there below you, type it in, and afterwards we'll try to do our best to answer those and give you some clarity on the cosmos. So I'm going to turn it over to Amy for a second. What I'm going to do for you is share my screen so that you can see the Stellarium program, and we will get started.
Okay, so Nick is pulling up Stellarium off of his computer, and that's stellarium.org if you're trying to find it yourself. It's free planetarium software that you can download. And you can take a look at the sky. He's got the field of view set pretty large so that you can see a big swath of the sky. And there are three things that determine what sky you get to see: your latitude, the date, and the time. So you need to tell Stellarium where you are. And so if you look in the bottom left corner, you see it set for Earth. We're looking from Earth, Chapel Hill specifically, and then you've got an elevation listed in meters. And I think Nick can show us a way that you can set your location. You can also use a shortcut key called F6. And then you can type in the place where you are. I know that not everybody watching necessarily lives in Chapel Hill or even in North Carolina. But if you type in Chapel Hill, you'll see it, you select it, and then you can see the red arrow on the map. And then you can also see below that the latitude and longitude for where you are. You can also check a box that will set it as your default location, so Stellarium will remember that you wanted to see the sky from Chapel Hill. And then if you also look around, you'll see the horizon where the sky meets the ground, and there's some trees, which is appropriate for North Carolina. And you'll see red letters along the horizon to indicate the cardinal direction. So we've got the view facing south, similar to how you would be if you were in our full dome theater at Morehead. The seats face south. The south is the sweet spot for those of us in the northern hemisphere. But if there's anything you want to know about that's in the northern sky, you just let us know, and we can go over that in the Q&A. So Nick's actually got the sky set for the time pretty much right now. And so you see blue sky with the sun, and we want to look at the nighttime sky. So we'll get that bright star, the sun, below the horizon. And Nick, do you want to tell us about how you change the time?
Sure. So you might have just seen the time start moving forward by itself. What I used was a hotkey to do it. There is a panel right down here where you can speed things up yourself just by clicking, but I kind of like the hotkeys because I can use the keyboard just to get things rolling. So you notice the seconds started kind of ticking up right here. The hotkey for moving forward is L, letter L. To do time at a regular rate, which is kind of like second by second, that's K. And to go backwards, that's J. So they're all right next to each other, and you can use those to kind of make your own time machine, manipulate it yourself there. So why don't we speed it up a notch here? I'm itching to see the nighttime sky, and that sun can't set fast enough. So we'll go a little bit faster, but keep your eyes peeled for what's going to be on the western horizon as the sun sets, because that's kind of your first cool thing this evening.
Something really bright is going to pop out. There it is, a planet, Venus. It is absurdly bright. And by the way, last I checked, it was going to be clear pretty much over the entire state of North Carolina tonight. So definitely go out as soon as it's dark tonight. It looks like we've got the sky set for just after 9 p.m. So we'll start here, we'll roll through the entire night, and we'll actually roll in tomorrow morning to something else that you can see. But for now, for early evening, so after the Science Cafe, after you've finished your dinner, after it's gotten dark, go out around 8:30 or 9 as the sky is darkening, look for Venus. It's the very, very bright object in the west. And then you can also find, oh, and I think Nick might be able to show us how you can get more information about Venus.
Oh yeah, absolutely. So you notice when I clicked on it, a bunch of information came up over here on the left-hand side of your screen. It tells us what it is. It's a planet, how bright it is, what time it rises, what time it sets, how far away it is, how big it is. So you can actually tailor this information over here to be all the fun math and physics that you want, or you can kind of keep it simple. It's totally up to you. It's a neat feature of this program. So one thing I want to do before we keep going is show you that We don't have to look at Venus just as it looks from here on our desktop. You can zoom in on it with Stellarium. So there's a number of ways to zoom in on things. My favorite way to zoom in is to use the hotkey of backslash. So I'm going to hit backslash. Watch what happens. I was invisible there for a second, but it looks like it came up for you. Maybe you noticed something about Venus. Maybe you're like, man, their computers are really messed up and it just didn't fill Venus in all the way. Well, that's not the case. Venus goes through phases, much like our own moon. So you notice only part of Venus is lit up right now. It's kind of how the geometry works out between the Earth, the Sun, and Venus, kind of like how you would think about the geometry with the Earth, the Moon, and the Sun. So that was a discovery by Galileo, one of the things that kind of piqued his interest about objects orbiting something other than the Earth. So with Stellarium or a telescope, if you have a pretty good telescope, you can see this phase of Venus. And again, I zoomed in with the backslash key. If you want to zoom back out, you can use /, and we'll do that.
Great, thank you. And Nick, I wonder if you can show us how you can actually change the view so we're not looking south. Maybe we're looking a little more southwest or west. We can get a look at a bright winter constellation that is still in the sky.
Yeah, so all I did right then was I just clicked and dragged. You know, you can do this with the trackpad on a laptop as well, but I have a mouse here, so I just dragged it so that we're facing kind of southwest, west. And realistically, as long as you don't have a tree in the way, this is a view you can probably get in your backyard too.
So we wanted to mention, I know today maybe didn't feel quite so much like spring because it was chilly for those of us in the Triangle area, but we actually are having the sky dominated by spring constellations now, but you can still get a glimpse of winter constellations as long as you go out early in the evening and you look towards the west. They'll be setting as the night goes on because of Earth's rotation, but they're still there now. And a really prominent winter constellation is Orion, the Hunter. The easiest way to find him is to look for his 3 bright stars that form his belt, which Nick is pointing to right now. That's Orion's belt. You can also see his shoulders. There's Betelgeuse, and he's just clicked on it. And then underneath you've got Rigel. And then there's, maybe if you have a good imagination, you can play connect the dots. And if you have a really good imagination, you might be able to imagine a hunter. So there he is. You can use Orion to star hop around the sky, which means you use stars that you know to find other stars. So if you go from Orion's belt to the left, you'll get to the brightest star in the night sky, and that's Sirius, the dog star. It's part of Canis Major, the big dog. And with a lot of imagination, there you go, Orion and his big hunting dog. If you have a big dog, you need a little dog. So he's got a little hunting dog. Procyon is the brighter star. And there is his little dog right there. So if you go from Orion's belt to the right, you'll get to, don't be fooled by Venus. There's a star, Aldebaran, and it's the eye of the bull, Taurus the bull. And then if you look closely in the bull, it might be a little bit hard depending on the resolution of your screen, but there's a little star cluster within the boundaries of Taurus the bull. It's the Pleiades or the Seven Sisters. Can we zoom in on that and get a nice look? It's an amazing view through binoculars in particular. So if you have binoculars, know that the Pleiades are hanging out in the same direction as Venus right now. And you can see with binoculars, it's a lot more than just the 6 or 7 stars you might notice with your unaided eye. And by the way, I know there's at least one person from Durham who's watching right now. And if you're familiar with the Durham city flag, you will recognize this star cluster. There's a version of it on the flag, and it's appropriate because Durham is the bull city and the Pleiades are in the constellation of the bull. All right, so we'll keep our tour of the sky pretty brief. So we'll just, maybe we can roll on to morning. And as we move on through the night, of course, what's happening, this really does happen. The sky really does appear to turn around us. And of course, it's because of Earth's rotation is giving us this illusion. And so you see more stars start to rise and come into view in the east, and they set in the west. And we want to take you all the way to right before it starts to get light in the morning. So we're going to stop right around 5:30 in the morning. Sunrise will be at 6:50 in the morning. And look at all these interesting things that just popped up kind of in the southeast there. And so let's take a look. We got 3 planets, and then the moon has spent the last few mornings moving through this part of the sky. And Nick, I wonder if we could start with Jupiter and maybe zoom in on each of the planets.
Sure, absolutely. One thing to note is you probably are thinking that the planets look a lot like stars. They really do. There's a few rules of thumb that you can use to kind of tell the difference in the evening sky between a planet and a star. This morning it's going to be easy because they're all right here. They're all very bright. They're close to the moon. It's not like that every morning. Planets tend to kind of wander through the sky. But of course, if you have a telescope and can zoom in, you can tell the difference. But I always check to see if something's twinkling. Y'all probably know the song Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star. It doesn't go twinkle, twinkle, little planet. And that has to do with how the light from these objects reaches us here on the Earth. But maybe you can kind of use your perceptive skills in the early morning sky if you've had your coffee to be able to tell the difference. But yeah, let's start with Jupiter. Oh, Sagittarius came up. That's kind of fun. Probably because that's the same area of the sky that Jupiter's in right now.
Which kind of leads to another planet finding tip, that you're always going to find them in near constellations of the zodiac.
Yeah, great point. So let's zoom in on it. Remember, I use my backslash key to do that. Let's see if we can get close.
Oh.
So this is neat. You see some of the moons, Callisto, Io, Europa, Ganymede. Those are the Galilean satellites of Jupiter. But if you really crank up this telescope, you can get a lot more detail of the planet itself.
Oh, looks like the Great Red Spot is visible this morning. And those 4 moons of Jupiter, you can see those in a telescope. So if you've got a telescope at home, this is a great time to bring it out. Now, again, this is going to be the sky view for those of you who either stay up really, really, really late or get up ridiculously early. It's 5:30 in the morning.
Amy and Nick, I have a quick question. So you mentioned that Great Red Spot looks like it's visible. So that image of the planet is going to be accurate for what you should be able to see? Oh, that's very cool.
Yeah, it should be. To see the red spot, you need a pretty powerful telescope. You know, the scopes we use for sky watching, you can tell a little bit of the color of the planet and things like that, maybe cloud bands. I haven't gotten lucky enough to see the red spot, but it's possible.
Okay, so Jupiter, if you have a telescope, definitely take a look. And then Saturn, you need to put this on your life to-do list if you have never seen Saturn through a telescope. And this Stellarium view, okay, don't quite expect maybe quite this much detail in the telescope you're likely to have at home, but you will be able to see the rings of Saturn. Stunning sight. By the way, Saturn and Jupiter over this year look like they're pulling closer and closer together in the sky. They're of course many millions of miles apart. They take social distancing very seriously, but just from our point of view on Earth, they're going to start to appear more and more kind of in the same line of sight from now through December 21st. So a reward for you if you're willing to get up early, you can see those planets. And then also Mars is in the sky, the red planet, looking a little bit reddish. Adjust your expectations before you look at Mars through a telescope. It is not going to have this much detail, you know, unless you have access to the Hubble or something. Your backyard telescope will show it looking like a pink ball. And there's one other thing we might look at. The moon moves noticeably from day to day, night to night, and it's hanging out in that same general area of the sky. You, of course, don't need binoculars or a telescope to see it, but it's a really nice sight through either. Take a look at the terminator. That's where the dark side meets the light side, and you'll see lots of detail there if you've got binoculars or a telescope. And then you're thinking, oh, but I'm not a 5:30 in the morning kind of person. Well, that's okay. You can actually see the moon at a more reasonable hour tomorrow. And it looked like it would be clear, again, over pretty much the entire state of North Carolina through tomorrow morning at least. And so what we're going to do is actually roll through to around 9 a.m. or so, and you can watch. And of course, the planets will disappear from your naked eye view, but the moon will stay visible. It's a pretty thick waning crescent. So if we go to roughly 9 in the morning, it'll be at its highest point in the southern sky. So look about a third of the way up the sky. And notice that the side of it that's illuminated is the side that's pointing towards the sun, because of course that's the reason why it's lit up, is because it's the sun lighting it up. So in a sense, the moon is pointing towards where the sun is. And I think that's the end of our sky tour. And I think we're ready to take any questions, unless there's anything else Nick wanted to mention.
No, that's great. In summation, Stellarium's a really cool tool. You know, we really miss being in our planetarium dome, and this is not quite as immersive, but as far as being able to get these images of things that are so far away and so fascinating to so many. I love it as a tool. Honestly, we use it all the time to check out the sky before we go to a sky watching session. So hopefully y'all can get some use out of it as well. I will say that Morehead is starting a kind of new virtual program called Morehead at Home. Every Tuesday and Thursday at 10 a.m., we're going to be doing a tour like this geared towards K-12 students. So if you're a student or a teacher or a parent or just somebody who likes science, we're going to have more of this content going forward for you. So tomorrow's Thursday, so 10 a.m. tomorrow. Feel free to tune in. You can go to moreheadplanetarium.org and go to, I think, the Explore tab, and Morehead at Home should be right there at the top. And that way, maybe you can join in with us. But yeah, we're happy to take your questions and try to show you some stuff.
Heidi says that this is amazing. So I agree. I think I've been fortunate enough to work with some pretty amazingly talented non-formal educators, and Amy and Nick are some of the best, two of the best that I've ever worked with. I have a few questions here that I'm curious to get you to weigh in on, and I think I'll leave it open to who wants to answer what. But the first one is that Stellarium is not, we're not taking any money from Stellarium. We think it's open access, open source, so people can use it. Are there other sorts of software? I know you mentioned there's some fee-based, but are there any other ones if people don't like this one, or anything, other tools you recommend or websites to point people to as they want to delve deeper into finding out what's in the night sky near them?
Yeah, absolutely. There are a number of websites and things like that that we use, but one in particular that I've kind of been exploring a lot recently is called NASA's Eyes. So it's a free program. It's a NASA program, but it's a simulation software. There's 3 different types of thing you can do when you get into it. There's eyes on the solar system, eyes on Earth, and eyes on exoplanets. So it's not quite a constellation viewer as much as it's a solar system sandbox, but it's really neat because it's real-time information about spacecraft that are out there in our solar system. You can fly around to all the planets. You can learn about the Voyager missions or New Horizons that went to Pluto, and kind of manipulate the sky in the same way that we did with Stellarium today. So I think it's just eyes.nasa.gov. You can check that one out. It's really, really fun. The exoplanets version talks about these planets that orbit around other stars. So, potential other worlds may be habitable. And Eyes on Earth is neat because NASA does so much Earth observing. If you want to learn about levels of carbon dioxide or global temperature or changes in our atmosphere, we have spacecraft that are orbiting the Earth right now telling us that information. So, depending on what you're interested in, I think that's a really cool option.
Those are great. Amy, did you have any you wanted to add, or did Nick cover it? Looks like he covered it.
That was great.
Okay. I'm going to ask you this one then, Amy. Well, I wonder, as informal science educators, we all have these sort of, I guess, I don't want to say causes, but maybe soapboxes we want to get on. That, like, if there's one magic wand fact or misconception or something you could just, poof, make everyone know or understand. Do you have one that in your career of working at a planetarium or as a scientist, do you have something that you just wish we all kind of collectively knew? I'm thinking more about astronomy, but I'm willing to go broader than that.
Wow, that's deep, Jonathan. Well, lately, I don't know about everybody else, but I've been spending a lot of time outside and really, really appreciating nature. I mean, I always did, but wow, do I appreciate it now. And I would like everyone to remember that the sky is half your field of view. Half your field of view is looking into the universe. And here's my environmental message. Let's not mess up that view of the sky. Some of that light has traveled millions of years to reach us, and let's not lose it from view with poorly designed outdoor lighting. So light pollution messes up your sky.
That's great. Man, that almost should be like one of Morehead's taglines, is the sky is half your field of view. I love it. It's beautiful. Nick, what is your favorite odd fact about the universe, or something that just one of the things that you learned that you were just like, whoa, what? And like reread it or heard it or asked someone about?
Oh man, that's a good one. It's not so much a science fact as it is kind of like a nomenclature fact. So I hang out with a lot of third graders in the mobile planetarium and at Morehead, and undoubtedly we show an overview of the solar system and we see the planet Uranus. Also, you could say it Uranus, you can say Uranus, you can say either way, and they lose it. They lose it, right? No matter what, they're going to laugh at it. Sometimes one of my power moves is just to get them to say Uranus as loud as they can inside the planetarium, and that kind of like makes them think it's less funny or something. But the trivia that I like to share with them is that when Uranus was first discovered, it wasn't named after a Roman Titan. It was discovered by English astronomers, and they had a king at the time, King George. So you know what they named that planet? George. So, I think that's almost funnier than Uranus, no matter how punny it is, that for a little while we had a planet George.
Is that, you're on the clock here, Nick. Is that true?
It's true. I'm not going to lie to you.
Hey, William Herschel was a savvy guy. He knew name things after your patron. Call it the Georgian star,
Yeah, that's a really good, that's a great fact. I love it. Amy, did you have one that came to mind as I was asking Nick, or is it just something? Because I was thinking, I'll stall for you a little bit. Is that I remember?
No, I've got one.
Okay, I was just gonna. Well, then go ahead, take it away.
Well, I'm just gonna leave it with the teaser here, which is my all-time favorite science story to tell, is about how the star Arcturus, which is now visible in the evening sky right after it gets dark, the star Arcturus opened the 1933 Chicago World's Fair. And I'm just going to leave you in suspense.
That's very cool. All right, so we have a question from Elise, who wants to know, how far can the Hubble see?
Oh, wow. It
takes
can
a really long exposure.
Jonathan starts Googling.
No, I encourage you to look up something called the Hubble Ultra Deep Field. It's a pretty famous image. I wish I could just like pop it up on the screen for you right now, but I don't have it pulled up. Look up the Hubble Ultra Deep Field, because what Hubble did was it basically collected light from one patch of the sky for a big period of time. I don't know exactly how long it was, but longer than a usual exposure. And what they started to see is all these points of light getting brighter and more detailed, and realized that when you look in a dark patch of sky, there are galaxies there, far distant. So I don't know an exact number of how far the Hubble has seen, but we're talking billions of light years.
Very cool. Wit wants to know, when you first started sky watching through a telescope, what was your favorite thing to search for?
Oh, Saturn.
Yeah. Seeing craters on the moon is fantastic. But when you first see those rings of Saturn through a telescope, it like still kind of gives me chills when I see it, and I look at it all the time. So it kind of looks like it has ears. That's what little kids say all the time, but it's pretty fascinating, because even if it's small, and even if you get accused of putting a sticker on the telescope, somebody's seeing those rings from here on our planet, and those photons bounced off the rings, traveled to you, and that's your image of Saturn. I think it's so fascinating.
And when we do sky watching sessions, we always know if people, sometimes it's not obvious if somebody actually sees what they're supposed to see in the eyepiece, but if somebody saw Saturn, because they always react, usually with, wow.
Yeah, I was going to say that. I don't know if I would qualify it as a religious experience, but the first time I saw Saturn through a telescope, I thought someone was messing with me. I like quickly looked around to see if someone, and then I was like, what? And then I looked up at the sky, looked back through. It's absolutely incredible, and I hope everyone does get a chance to do it. That should be like in our mission statement.
Yeah, Saturn really exists. You can prove it to yourself.
We'll take one more question. Heidi wants to know, do you think our view of the sky has somehow changed given that people aren't commuting as much? So this is a quarantine-related question. My husband took our daughter on a walk yesterday, and when they reached a hill in our neighborhood, he said that they could see so much farther than usual. So do you think that's playing out in the night sky as well?
Oh, that's an interesting question. I imagine the air quality, hopefully the air quality is better, so that may be contributing some. We've also had some really stunning clear days and nights as well. And I don't know about the light pollution. That would be really interesting. There's actually, maybe there's less light pollution if people are actually turning off building lights in particular and fewer car lights. There's a citizen science project called Globe at Night that I think the latest campaign should have started, where you use the constellation Leo to measure the darkness of your night sky. So if you're really interested in that question, you want to contribute data to a worldwide citizen campaign, look up Globe at Night. I think it's globeatnight.org, and it's meant to be easy. They'll show you how to do it. There's apps you can download for your phone and stuff like that. You can basically contribute your measurement of the darkness of your sky to a database. And then they can make comparisons from year to year, and maybe we'll discover that in fact light pollution went down. That would be a really amazing side effect.
Well put, Amy and Nick. We're going to leave it there. Thank you so much for sharing your love of the night sky with us. It comes through whenever you do programs like this. It's an honor for me to work with you. I really appreciate you giving up your time and being a part of the Science Cafe. For the audience and attendance, we're going to turn on the chat for a few minutes. And if you want to give us feedback, we have thick skin. You can tell us how we did, what more you'd like to know. You could let us know what other topics you'd like to have us explore as part of the Science Cafe series. We do encourage you to visit moreheadplanetarium.org to find that Morehead at Home link, so you can find all of the events our team is doing in this virtual space. Also, we're in the midst of the virtual North Carolina Science Festival, so you can go to ncscifest.org and find a list of events that are happening all over the state of North Carolina by our partners that are doing incredible work online. For example, earlier this week, I attended a behind-the-scenes tour of the aviary at the NC Zoo. It was a blast. I did it from the comfort of my home in my pajamas, and it was wonderful. So you can find all of those things at ncscifest.org. Thank you, everyone. We hope you're doing well. Hope you're staying safe, and we look forward to seeing you next time. Bye-bye, everybody.